Phina Oruche, Upfront BBC Radio Merseyside, in what is a historic visit to Liverpool. I am seated with none other than Martin Luther King III. Good morning.
Good morning.
First off, can I ask you about the name? Martin Luther King. Is it daunting to carry the name of father?
Well, you know, the way that I look at it, and perhaps the answer will be yes, but I've carried it my entire life, and so I don't know that I know a difference. What I will say is there are challenges that we each have within our own circumstances, and I feel very blessed and honored to have been named, first of all, after my father. My father, of course, was named after his father. And it has been an extraordinary honor and privilege. And I hope that I am able to continue to build upon the legacy of my parents. So I try not to look at it in the way that, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming. But if I stopped and thought about it, it certainly could be. Because there are two schools of thought. Number one, when one realizes that in over 100 countries of the world, that in some way, form, or fashion, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday is observed. There are thousands of streets, schools, hospitals, parks, buildings named in his honor.
And rightly so.
Well, perhaps, but when I think about that, I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. But then I think about the real side, which I mean is the side that says, if these streets and parks and schools help us to really fulfill the mission that he crafted for us, to create a nation and a world where freedom and justice and equality exist for all, that is wonderful. That is what the memorials are supposed to do, inspire us to reach down deeper, to achieve the true essence. So what I realize is we still have a ways to go. While we've made strides in our world, we've still got a significant amount of distance to go. And it's my hope that these memorials will continue to not just remind us, but encourage us and give us. I mean, my dad and his team and my mom and her team laid out a roadmap for us to embrace.
When your mother passed and former President Clinton spoke at her funeral, he said that it was a terrible burden it's to have this legacy. And it seems to me that that's very narrow. It doesn't seem to me that that's something that you agree with, right?
Oh, I don't see it as a burden. I just choose not to embrace that word. I see it as an opportunity. I think out of every challenge in our life, there are great opportunities, and we have to find ways to transform. Because anyone, you can all, it's like looking at a cup, either half empty or half full. And it's the way we choose to look at our own life experiences, no matter what. My experience has been, certainly there have been trying times, because everything that happens in our lives, my wife and I, my daughter, my brother, and sister, is magnified because it is covered public.
Because of who you are.
But
everybody has family stuff, but yours ends up as fodder for the internet, for the newspapers, and what have you.
And that's challenging, but there are people every day who are trying to figure out where they're going to get their next meal from. And I don't think my struggle, while difficult, compares to that. I've been very blessed and fortunate. And so I think sometimes we get caught up into our own personal situations. And the reality is we have to look out. My dad used to say that unlike most or many say, self-preservation is the first law of the land. He would say other preservation is more important than self-preservation, because in reaching out to help others, you actually end up helping yourself.
Okay, your father was assassinated when you were a 10-year-old boy. What memories do you have of your father? I mean, it must be quite strange because you have historical celluloid coming back. What memories are you willing to share with your father?
Well, I have some very wonderful, vivid memories of the home life that we spent with my dad. My dad was a very jovial, unlike a traditional father. While he was represented leadership to many in our nation and maybe even the world, at home he was dad. He was like a playmate. We rode bicycles together. We used to swim at the YMCA. We played football. Well, not football like in the UK. Soccer. We played.
You mean American football, soccer, not soccer.
Yes. And sometimes we play baseball. I mean, Dad was an avid, was a pretty good sports person in terms of his ability. And so, he tossed the football. I mean, we just had fun whenever he came home. And one of the things I remember my mom saying more so than I remember that directly was often, at some point, Dad became so well known that he wanted to devote his time to us, his children. So in the house, we would toss the ball. And my mother didn't like that. I kind of remember that.
Listen, I don't like it when my son tosses the ball with his father either, so I'm with you on that one.
Well, you could break something up, but his excuse was, if I'm outside, I can't spend any time with the kids because people are constantly coming up. Not that he didn't want to address people, it was just that at that particular time, he wanted to devote his efforts toward fulfilling his children. And so we would sometimes end up playing inside at a certain point so that we could just have fun with them.
Recently there was a march in the United States for a lady called Marissa Alexander. I'm pretty much interested in that because it's using a tactic your father is famous for. Are marches and non-violent practices still potent to fight these evils in our societies?
Most definitely. We should always, I believe, begin with the concept of nonviolence. Now, Marissa Alexander's situation, I went down to Jacksonville, Florida to actually be part of the protest there. And I have mixed emotions because I understand, and what I mean by that is her situation was a situation where no one was hurt. She did have a firearm. She fired, which ultimately was in the air, at an ex-husband
who had a history of domestic violence,
not
right?
just with her, but with all of the women that he actually had been involved with, all of his wives. This man was sick.
How many wives has he had?
I think it was at least 2 more. And so his history was always violent. I think if the court system is perhaps going to address, I think she personally will be vindicated. But I guess what I said I had a challenge was the fact that she felt she had to have a gun to protect herself. And many do have guns, but I have to believe there's got to be a different way. I'm not sure what it is, but we've got to find a way to address our conflicts and crises without having to have guns. But I also still believe her situation, she was mistreated. She was sentenced for, I think, 20 plus years in jail. And she's serving that time now, but there's a very good team of attorneys that are in the process of getting some justice for her. So I believe her situation, she will get justice in.
Finally, Liverpool has the dubious honor of being one of the oldest black communities in Europe based on the effects of slavery. What advice would you have for us in terms of creating more mutuality and interdependence between the races, because we are not there yet?
Well, I think that What I'm not sure how to do is to mandate what I'm going to say.
Okay.
But I do believe and know that there are professional trainings, there's sensitivity, diversity, and human relations training that the entire community needs. Because when diversity is one kind of training, which teaches you how to interact with diverse populations, different people.
Mm-hmm.
Sensitivity is a different kind of training because it teaches you still to put on another hat. Human relations is a different kind of training. So I believe that those are three different aspects of exposure that if a society is willing to say, we would like to train our police, we would like to train our government workers, we would like to train our corporate workers. When the entire society is exposed to those levels of training, I think they look at things in a different way and are willing to integrate and understand that every culture has made a contribution to the world's history, and every culture is important. No culture is more important than the other, and therefore we can't look down on anyone. We must look at the fact that people bring different things to the table, and people do things differently. And it doesn't mean that our way is the only or the best way. But when you have sensitivity to that, then you create really a harmonious kind of community where true love, justice, and ultimately freedom can exist for all human beings.
And one final thing, just wanted to ask you about the church. The church's relationship, is it the church that should mandate these things, or do we need to have it legislated from government? Because I do know that in back of your father's theology and message is the responsibility of the church. Just wondering where you sat with that.
Well, I think that in various societies it's different. I think that I think that it's a combination of the church and the state. But I think first of all it has to be something that the will has to be within the people. The people have to. I don't want to say demand, but have to request, have to want. If the people do not want it, it never will happen. But it doesn't mean that it has to be all of the people. It just takes a few good women and men to bring about change. My dad did not have masses, but it was a few men and women who raised the consciousness of the nation. And so I think that could happen. A few good women and men. Some may be religious leaders. Some may be MPs or certain members of parliament. But it just takes a few. It doesn't have to be the masses. Ultimately, the masses will embrace the truth. Because people have this interesting way of knowing what the truth is. It's something innate, but it sort of becomes dormant in our lives because we're socialized. What do I mean by that? Our daughter, for example. Yolanda Renee is 4.
I got a 4-year-old. I'm tired. Don't get me started.
She innately, and this is not germane to her. This is all children. If she knocks over that glass, at a certain point, she knows that she made a mistake, and she'll look up and say, "Uh-oh," or she'll do something. She will do something wrong, and then she'll say, "I apologize, Mommy. I apologize, Daddy." And we're getting ready to correct her. She knows when she's done wrong. There's something called conscience inside of all of us. What happens is our consciences go to sleep because we're socialized a certain way in our societies. We must awaken that consciousness because everyone generally knows when something is right or wrong. Even when you've been taught the wrong thing, you've got to go deep inside. And that's what it takes, arousing of that consciousness.
Wake up the conscience. I like that. One more, please. Please. One quick one. I can't remember it now because it's gone. I had one more, but I can't remember what it was. Don't worry about it. I'm so grateful. I should just be glad of what I got. I'm so grateful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mama.
Thank you.
Yolanda sounds like a cut-up. She sounds just like my son, Full Power. He's 4. Born in May 2008.
So
Oh, yeah?
May 14th.
Oh, wow.
May 25th.
Oh, he would still think he was, Thank you. God bless
Thank you. And you
God
too.
God bless you. God bless you.
When your husband be back from Atlanta? He's actually on his way to Costa Rica, so